here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight against that? No! We will run. And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
You ready? Let's go. Yeah. For those of you that want to know what we're all about, it's like this, yo.
And welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.TV. Thank you for joining me this evening. Quite a few articles, different topics we're going to go over. Don't know if you've been paying attention to the news. It sounds like they're trying to amp up World War III now. I have one report here, and this one is out of Sky News, it looks like. Two Russian bombers which flew close to UK airspace have been chased away by RAF jet fighters. The aircraft believed to be Tupolev 95s were spotted off the coast of northeast Scotland. They were turned away from Britain when an RAF Typhoon was scrambled from I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Lucar's Air Base near Dundee. Crews stationed there are on standby to intercept unidentified aircraft at a moment's notice. And we have reports of troops under the NATO flag from the U.S., I believe Great Britain, I'm sure some other countries, going into Poland. We see a lot of provocative measures being taken by a lot of Western powers and even Russia. I don't think there is any right side, because the problem is they're all fighting for power. Power over Ukraine and its territory. And I think the puppet government in Ukraine and the Ukraine citizens are being fooled, and they're being used. And then I don't think a lot of them realize it. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe we're not seeing it from either side, how much Ukraine might be feeling like they're being used by both sides. But so far I haven't seen that. So, I know, according to some reports about, one of Vice's, reporters is being held captive by, pro-Russian, Ukrainians. So, tensions over there are really, really tense right now, and I'm not sure where it's going to head. But it just seems through the media we see, the mainstream media here in the U.S., that they're pushing for, confrontation. And I just don't see any good coming out of it. I think, a lot of Americans are even being fooled. That warmongering. Excuse me there. I have one here out of Ben Swan. And this is something I want to play. This is as Senator Reid calls Bundy protesters domestic terrorists. This one from Ben Swan is confronting federal power, an act of domestic terrorism. So, let me go ahead and cue this up. And we shouldn't have any problems because this isn't coming from YouTube, so hopefully we don't have any problems. So, he's bringing up the point. Who's the one that is being confrontational? Who's the one that's engaging in confrontation? Who's the ones actually committing acts of aggression? The violent acts. Who's the one that committed any violent acts? And it does come down to BLM. And this goes beyond Bundy and his cattle. This is something that's been brewing across America. And I told the story about, a couple that I did some work for before and how basically they've been restricted on even being able to do anything with part of their property because of collapsed tile in a creek. That's causing part of their property to flood out and, well, now it's wetlands. It's wetlands now. No, it's a creek that keeps flooding because the tiles have collapsed and it's completely clogged up, basically dammed up. And they don't want to come out and do anything to it. Instead, they'll call it wetlands and restrict the access to their own property. This is, their property, unlike the Bundys. This is going on across the country. This is not just about the Bundys. This is about federal overreach. The federal government becoming authoritarian, tyrannical beast out there. They instead of, oh, well, we're gonna have the U.S. military, policing the streets of America, we'll just create a bureaucracy and give them all the military gear and send them out to do, well, basically the same thing it would be if the U.S. military was doing it. This is an overreach, and it's going to keep getting fueled the more this happens. This was a breaking point for a group of people, but when does your breaking point come? Do you have to wait for your property to be restricted when you have 30 acres or, however many acres you have, or a quarter of an acre, and they go, well, basically you can't use your backyard because, well, it floods and now it's wetlands. By the way, we're actually going to just kick you off the property because we're going to call it wetlands and just tear the house down and allow it to be natural. And you really should go get an apartment in the city. This pushing people off the property, it's not about lost internet connection or something there. I've been having problems, and from what I've heard, other hosts have been having a lot of problems this morning. So, excuse us if we lose connection here. I'll do whatever I have to do to reconnect, but I definitely been having problems with my internet, and others have too. But, when people protesting, people standing up for their property and their rights, for them to be called, violent people and terrorists, when history has shown that the biggest terrorists on this planet have always been governments. They've been the one that have committed the most acts against the everyday citizen, everyday person out there. Most of the attacks have come from governments. And a lot of times, history has also shown that it comes from your own government. And people go, oh, you really shouldn't even, talk about the money thing or support it because, it's a setup. And a lot of these people sometimes talk publicly about their beliefs. Therefore, well, why wouldn't you at least point out the authoritarian, the tyrannical government? And that doesn't mean you have to even support Bundy himself. But support the shift in the thinking of people that maybe we should start standing up for ourselves. Maybe when people start trying to steal your property, they go, well, I'm government and I got a shiny badge and a costume and a gun. That's not okay. We really have to start thinking different ways. Give me a second here. Okay. Well, in Georgia, because this whole Bundy thing, it also started spurring talks about gun rights and gun legislation. Anti-gun people are trying to use it. Here comes one out of the dailybeast.com. Georgia passes guns everywhere bill. On the biggest expansion of gun rights was signed into law Wednesday by Republican Governor Nathan Deal of Georgia, dubbed by critics as the Guns Everywhere bill. It will now allow Georgians to carry firearms in schools, bars, churches, and government buildings. The NRA has called it the most comprehensive pro-gun reform bill in state history and even achieved bipartisan support. Deal did argue that the bill was not an expansion as it originally was, emphasizing the change for religious leaders to opt in to allowing guns, whereas the original bill required them to permit firearms. There are always opportunities for people to use any piece of legislation as a political tool if they don't like it. But there was a bipartisan support for the bill. The main story that should come out of it is the final product is significantly different from earlier versions, said Deal. So out in Georgia, your rights are no longer being trampled upon as much, is basically what this comes down to. I don't look at it as expansion on rights. Well, you have the rights. The rights are what you make it. If you're not hurting other people and you're not being an aggressor and the person that's, hurting others, being the offensive person, when you're, I got a firearm, but it's only used in defense, then, you have that right. That's natural law. That's natural rights, common law. It becomes one of those things that, you have the right to self-defense. What these bills do is take the restrictions off of you to exercise your rights. So that's good news for Georgians, and we really need more, bills introduced to take all these restrictions off of us. And that comes to a lot of issues. There's so much that you're restricted on being able to do. And it's not that it would hurt someone. It's basically that, it kind of, whether it's corporation or government, someone has to try to keep a regulated monopoly on you. They don't want to call it a monopoly because we're not supposed to have monopolies. So they call them regulated monopolies. So it's one of those things. You even see in certain areas they basically require you to be hooked up to the electrical grid. If you're not hooked to the city electrical grid, then they won't allow you to live in your house. So you're forced into a system where you can't go, I'm just going to power my house myself and not be hooked. Well, no, you still have to be hooked to that electrical grid. It's one of those things that there's so many restrictions on your privacy in that way and your rights that way. If you live in the city and you just, I don't believe in electricity. Like the Amish, not all of them will use electricity, and there's different sects of, there so many different sects of, Amish. And I know, like, around my area, we have a lot of Swiss, Amish. You got Old Order, New Order, and those even split off. So some Amish do use solar or wind power. But there's a lot that don't use electricity at all. Well, they couldn't ever live in a lot of these cities because they would be forced to have it hooked to their house against their will. That's not right. Well, it's to prevent these people from living in a house with no electricity and letting it just fall apart and them not be warm and dying in their house because they don't have heat and electricity. It's basically, we gotta save the people, and then, well, what happens? Well, you're forced to hook up to electrical systems so they can monitor your electrical use. And then you got the smart meters, and, it cascades. You don't think it will cascade when they introduce, healthcare reform. No. It's going to cascade. You look at so many different things and it'll cascade. Okay. I'm going to go on to something else I got out of Houston Freethinkers. 18 scientifically validated reasons to end public water fluoridation. Another thing that they force upon their citizens without most people even knowing. And I think this originated out of Activist Post. Says many people are coming to realize that far from improving dental health, the fluoridation of municipal water and many store-bought foods and drinks is actually detrimental to our overall health. Excuse me there. What was once a widely accepted practice is now being scrutinized and condemned by many prominent physicians and free thinkers, and the scientific evidence to support these condemnations is mounting. Recently, a Harvard medical study claimed that ingesting fluoride leads to loss of IQ in young children, which is remarkably frightening by itself. Now another study has been published taking a thorough look at the pros and cons of ingesting fluoride, conducted by Stephen Peckham and Nai Awofezo, I don't know, and published in the Scientific World Journal. This new research paper begins with the following important introduction, which calls for the end to public fluoridation. Fluorine is the world's 13th most abundant element and constitutes 0.08% of the Earth's crust. It has the highest electrogravity of all elements. Fluoride is widely distributed in the environment, occurring in the air, soils, rocks, and water. Although fluoride is used industrially in a fluorine compound, the manufacture of ceramics, pesticides, aerosol, propellants, refrigerants, glassware, and Teflon cookware, it is generally unwanted byproduct of aluminum, fertilizer, and iron ore manufacture. The medicinal use of fluorides for the prevention of dental caries began in January 1945 when community water supplies in Grand Rapids, United States, were fluoridated to a level of 1 ppm as a dental caries prevention measure. However, water fluoridation remains a controversial public health measure. The paper reviews the human health effects of fluoride. The author concludes that available evidence suggests that fluoride has a potential to cause major adverse human health problems. while having only a modest dental caries prevention effect as part of efforts to reduce hazardous fluoride ingestion. The practice of artificial water fluoridation should be considered globally. While industrial safety measures need to be tightened in order to reduce unethical discharge of fluoride compounds into the environment, public health approaches for global dental caries reduction that do not involve systematic ingestion of fluoride are urgently needed. Without mincing words, a new study moves right into support these assertions, offering the following indications that fluoride is not only of dubious benefit for dental health, but that it is also terrible for overall human health. It says, number 1, fluoride is not critical for healthy teeth. It is widely accepted that fluoride only helps prevent dental decay by topical means, by direct action on the tooth enamel, predominantly after eruption and dental plaque. However, it is important to note that while fluoride contributes to the remineralization process in the enamel of the tooth surface, this is not dependent on fluoride, and that fluoride's anti-caries effect is critically dependent on calcium and magnesium content of the teeth enamel. Fluoride may actually make certain, this is number 2, fluoride may actually make certain people more vulnerable to dental cavities. Among young individuals with low calcium and magnesium in teeth enamel, usually due to undernutrition, fluoride ingestion contact with the teeth presents historically as hypocalcification and or hypoplasia, which may paradoxically make such individuals more vulnerable to dental caries. Number 3, because of the complex nature of how dental caries develop, it is too difficult to tell if water fluoridation actually helps prevent dental caries. Number 4, the history of research into ingesting fluoride as an effective means of preventing dental caries is controversial at best. 5, fluoride is classified as a pollutant, and there is no such thing as a disease caused by fluoride deficiency. Number 6, and this will be the last one I mentioned. I'll give you links to it. But number 6, drinking fluoride in public water makes it impossible to administer a proper dose, causing a rise in toxic dental fluorosis. So, there's some. Just go to HoustonFreethinkers.com, and it's their 18 scientifically valid reasons to end public water fluoridation. And you can also find it at activist post under the same title. I think that's where it originated from, yeah. So, check that out. It's forced medication that is basically been proven to be ineffective in any means the way you're taking it through water, but, its effectiveness even as topical, is small at best. So, you kind of have to look at it that way too, so. Okay. I have one here for you. It's a clip I'm going to play. And this one is Bitcoin, the True Democracy, Stefan Molyneux. And I know some people out there don't like Bitcoin. That's cool. You don't have to tune in for this part, so it's up to you. And like I say, never put all your eggs in one basket. It's just not a good idea in any type of investment you do. A lot of people that relied on real estate could tell you that, property is always going to be valuable. Yeah, but when they create bubbles too, you kind of lose out there. So never put all your eggs in one basket. Let's go ahead and get this queued up here. Okay, for you that did hear that, I was listening to a couple different feeds, and I know some of our feeds weren't carrying that. So sorry if you were just getting background noise. I'm going to be bringing in Vince, and Vince has been out at the Bundy Ranch multiple times. He's been out there, talked with many of the people out there. So we're going to bring him into the conversation, get his take and his experience out there, the people he's met, you know, what the message is coming out of there. So, let's go ahead and get him in here. And here we go. Hopefully. Okay, he's going to call in on phone. So. Give us a second here as we try to get connected. Here we go. And we are joined by Vince. Vince, welcome.
Hey, sorry about that. I didn't have my microphone or anything else set up when you started calling.
That's fine. Phone works just perfect. So I just want to get your take of what you've experienced out at the Bundy Ranch, the message coming out of there, the fight going on, everything that you've really experienced out there and your take on it all.
Well, first of all, I know there's some controversy, and JJ and some others have pointed some things out to me, but I'd like to start with at the beginning and go back the day before, the feds were stood down and backed down. The day that people were there individually, collectively, to stand for what's right and to stand against tyranny. As far as my experiences with people there, there's only a couple, that I've seen that was, oddballish. They seemed out of place. Obvious to me that, they weren't part of the whole of what was going on there. The Bundys, each one that I've met have all been great, wonderful people. If you believe in God, you may believe differently than they. I'm not going to, argue with anybody about their religion. I might discuss it with somebody. But
yeah, it's kind of pointless to try to argue faiths.
Yeah,
that's a personal belief, and people have to come to really their own conclusions on their personal beliefs.
Exactly. There's a guy, man, I wish I did a better job about keeping track of names, but there was a guy out there, and he's pretty big in the internet and pretty long-winded, and there's another guy out there, just a nobody. He's got a sticker on, go get the hell out, illegals, and there's a few people up there preaching some basic what I call hate, and forgetting that we all need to stand together where we stand, for what's right, and let's set aside our differences, if you're there for God and guns or for to free the weed or we have people out there from all walks of life, from GMOs and occupying the Occupy movement, gay rights and everything else. Let's make this an issue about a bloodless revolution and not
the main thing I think you were kind of pointing out there is really that freedom, the idea of freedom shouldn't have any borders or any race or, any religion. It's something that we all should have in common.
Yeah, I think so. You know, the way I understand God, he gave everybody free will and the right to self-determination. So that's, that's what we ought to support as well, I think. It's, to me, obvious and natural that, what's good and right.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm. There's like this one guy, he's changed the whole concept from revolution, and he's talking about now civil war. And, any student in history is going to know that, armed revolution. I'm not saying that anybody's wrong for being there. Matter of fact, I think more people ought to be there, more people to stand as witness. And, you don't have to have a gun to be your weapon there. But when I felt completely safe knowing that I was surrounded by armed people.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling when, you're part of a group that no one has any type of protection and the other ones do. They have firearms. So, that for some people they go, oh, wouldn't you feel like you're in, danger? And it's like, no, because both sides have the ability to defend.
Right. I hear rumors of feds are massing in Vegas here. I have no evidence of that, other than stuff being posted. There's just rumors flying. And, I've been there almost the whole time since, a week ago Friday. Come back into town, sporadically. Come back in to spend the week in town this week. And mostly to catch on pulling rest the last 2 days. So, pretty exhausting being out there. Last Friday we had bands and kind of a celebration, and there was a sign up, no drugs or alcohol, and they wanted to keep it family friendly. But after the concerts, we had the after party. Shout out to the Rusty Pumpkins. We had an after party. I got up on, I shot some video on stage and recorded some music, and so we're supposed to collaborate on further on some of the shots that I've got and what they've got and stuff. But it was a great time, Got out in, I'm going to publish this one here in a little bit on YouTube. Country Girl, the Rusty Pumpkins, and me along the Virgin River drinking some moonshine. Yeah, had a good time. Really did. But, it's serious, but you can't be serious all the time, That's what's the point in life if you can't enjoy the fruits.
Right. And, I think a lot of those people that been out there from the beginning, they have a lot to celebrate and be able to relax. But, again, you still have to stay vigilant because we know that the feds don't back down completely.
Well, see, that's the deal. What's their plans? Are they planning an armed raid? Because, if they are, there's people embedded there that, they've come with no intention of leaving. There's people there that are willing to lay down their life. Most people there would, in fact, be willing to, lay down their life for this that, they believe is in great importance. So, I've never been in the military, so I question the strategy they're bringing, all the militia into one area, and it just, to me, it seems like a bad move. If there's an exchange of gunfire, then,
I've heard rumors that I haven't been able to confirm, which I hope they are true. If they're going to do this from a strategical standpoint, that they would have militiamen kind of staged also around the, county and the state.
Well, some of what I got is, that they are, stationed in, for miles and miles around. There's a listening post and, observation post. It's being run as a, military operation on at the militia side. And again, something I don't disagree with, and just because, I don't have an understanding doesn't mean I'm right necessarily, but, I just think it's a bad idea to group everybody together there like that. They pulled people out that were, like in my part of where I was camping, and, these guys were armed, regular guy, a guy and his son came up, and in order to be a part of operations, they have to go sign something, which I'm completely against that notion,
Right.
They're setting the stage for civil war and not for the revolution. We don't have to be a part of a single group to be there to occupy with our own feet and our own voice and our eyes to observe. Because it's quite obvious that there's not going to be a consensus of beliefs. So when it's isolated down to God and guns, I just think that we're shifting. But like I said, I'm not trying to be critical of anybody. I don't have a full understanding of everything going on there, of course. But that's just my opinion.
Now, I have this gut feeling that it seems like there are things that are being hyped up and things that are kind of coming out, and it just seems like there's a lot of propaganda on maybe the alternative media side trying to hype it up more than what it is. Whether it be saying that, the federal agents are going to raid, or, not saying that that's propaganda. They might have a legitimate, cause to put that alert out. But the simple fact that it seems like there's a lot of hyping up. Have you felt that there at the Bundy Ranch that, there's been, kind of tense moments where they think something's getting ready to happen?
No, I think the hype is coming from the media, alternative media and so forth. But almost everybody there that I've dealt with, is straight up. They're sincere, they're honest, good people. I have questioned about a few people, and rightfully so. I think as far as the people at the forefront of this, the leaders and so forth. They should be scrutinized. And, are there people coming in with, ulterior motives? These things that people a lot smarter than I need to examine and, just do an investigation for themselves. All these people might be, have the greatest motives in the world. But that doesn't always mean that it's, move for in the right direction. So, I think we need to question and be honest all along the way about, what's going on, which direction this is headed. And, the people, they say they're there for the Bundys, well, they need to be there also, let that be a rally point, sure, but let's make this about, what's right and just, fully, let's not just, bring ourselves only for that right there.
And I think if that is pushed as a thing that it's about the Bundys and their ranch that, and this is mainstream, alternative, Glenn Beck, whether you want to consider him alternative or mainstream, I kind of consider him more mainstream. However it's being pushed, we do need to go, this isn't about the Bundys. This is about what, the federal government being authoritarian on the, citizens. That this is about government, control over people's lives. And it's not something that's isolated to the Bundy Ranch. This is going on across America and across the world. And a lot of it can be linked to either a corporation or things like the United Nations and Agenda 21. But this is going on worldwide, and this is something that, everybody should be able to rally, say, no longer are we going to allow governments to take land and sell it to a corporation or make it off limits to humans because, we got to save a, endangered spider, whatever BS they want to come up with while they'll sit there and destroy the area themselves.
Exactly.
It's something that we should rally behind, the simple fact that people are starting to wake up to, all this BS where they use excuse after excuse to either tax you, to rob you, to take your land. If you don't pay your voluntary taxes, will come with armed people from a bureaucracy, not law enforcement, but bureaucracy, to kick you out of your house and take all your assets.
Michelle Fiore was there She gave a speech. She visited throughout the week, last week. She's running for state assemblywoman here in Nevada. She's awesome, man. Check her out, Michelle Diori. You can find her with any of your search on YouTube or your search engine. I was very proud how she made her stance, and what it is we're not going to be governed at gunpoint, in her words. And I really enjoyed it. Her and the sheriff from Indiana, Ben, I have to look up his last name. They came there for this reason to make a point. Look, we're not going to go this route anymore. Okay, you guys coming in here and pushing people around at the point of a gun, stealing, robbing, killing. It's time for all that to stop. And if anybody, from within the Homeland Security, the NSA, the whatever, if you guys, hopefully, you guys are going to be listening to some of this and take pause to think. This is about, the future of the world, future of children, your children, our children.
And the future of humanity.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to. And are you talking about the sheriff from Elkhart, Indiana?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one, for the listeners out there that don't know, he is the one that basically kicked the feds out of his county when they were going after a Amish raw milk farmer. And it's because they have co-ops where you can lease into a cow or, buy shares of the cow. That way you can obtain raw milk. And, the feds want to keep raiding, that Amish farmer, and that sheriff stepped in and said, get the hell out.
Yeah, that's, the people working for the government are obviously, in support of the corporatocracy of America, and the Constitution the organic Constitution was changed after 1871. It no longer is for the people; it's for the corporation of America, and it's their interest. And it all goes hand in hand with electoral process and the lobbyists and all these big money powers, these national corporations that are in fact running America and the world. My buddy John here made a good point that it's gone past. It's all about supporting the money powers and not the people, and they're robbing our national resources. And his point was that we've gone to Central America and South America. We've gone to the Middle East. We've robbed the resources at the point of a gun, and in the name of freedom. And now it's coming home to roost, and we can see some of the same things here. And we've got to realize that anytime there's violent upheaval, it's usually co-opted because out of order they bring their chaos, or out of their chaos they bring order. It's the same old agenda been going on for centuries, and it works every time. And people get so caught up in their own confirmation bias that they're not even willing to look at it beyond what it is that they think is all right. So I think we all need to question that. Now, I did speak to the commander of the militia, and I put him on the spot. I said, what if this was about a plant? What if he wanted to grow hemp? And I kind of backed him into a corner where of course I'd support that. My right to smoke a plant, or a person's right for, if they want to contract themselves with a state in a civil marriage, the same-sex couples, whose business is it of anybody's what, people do, as long as there's no crime against person or property. So, you've got to be consistent. You can't define morality by your own senses and try to, then own freedom by only allowing for that freedom. If you're going to stand for freedom, you have to stand for freedom for everybody.
And, it's kind of like what Larkin Roses talked about with how he became, the type of thinker he is. And it's kind of the same way I've become the type of thinker I am, because I used to be a hardcore constitutionalist. But through my, my ideology and really thinking about it, and, the arguments that, the government should only be there for defense. Therefore, they should be able to tax people to wage war. And they go, well, they won't, it's not for waging war. It's just for defense. Well, what do you consider defense and what I consider defense might be a little bit different. You might say, well, they over there in that country go, oh, we think America's bad and it should be, wiped out or destroyed, but the person has no ability to do anything but maybe a small, well, I'm going to run over there and do something stupid. But, another person might go, well, unless they're actually attacking us, we don't do anything. Because if you go, well, they threatened us, but they have no ability, but we go over there and make an offensive move, and by the way, we hurt, civilians in the process. Do we really, enhance our national security, as they would call it? So, when I make the argument, well, we should tax for defense, but because that's for your own good, but we shouldn't tax for any type of welfare, even though their claim is, well, it's for their own good. It's for, so you have that backup in case if something happens, you can get your welfare. So, it becomes the same argument. And I go, well, I can't make those type of arguments because then I'm being a hypocrite. And so you have to really be broad about it when you want to, say that you're for freedom. You gotta go, well, I'm not just for freedom for my religious view on a man and a woman being married. If that's not affecting my life, I don't care what they call it. They can call it whatever they want. That's between them and their church if they have one, or, any type of group they're with. And, I think that more people really need to go, hey, what am I really fighting for? Am I just fighting for my freedom for my belief, or am I fighting for the freedom of everyone to believe wherever the hell they want, live their lives the way they want, as long as they're not hurting other people? And I think that's the main message.
And I like the way Nathan Frazier, puts it, Live Free FM Sunday nights on UCY.tv. He says, by what right does somebody have to come and take from another person at the point of a gun and give to somebody else, just because it's the name of government, does that make it right? Well, I don't think so.
Yeah. What constitutes as right? And you gotta go, well, taking from one to give to another using force is not right. And just because someone has a label above their name that says government official or law enforcement, or that doesn't give them extra rights. They are still a human. They are still part of society. Therefore, they don't get extra rights, no matter what label you put upon them.
That's right. And, a person has a right to defend themselves, their life, their liberty, their property. And so collectively, people came to support the Bundys that last week ago, last Saturday. And, if they hadn't been there, things would have been a whole lot different. We wouldn't be talking about it right now. It'd be over and done with. And I'm quite certain there would have been some dead cowboys and some dead Bundys and more dead cattle. Now, we went out and they excavated around a pit where they had the cattle bunched, and they did a rough roundup. I mean, they run these cows. They separated the mamas from the babies, and a lot of cows died in the process. And they had a pit where they dug up some dead cows there, some dead cattle. Went where they had them. It was like a rock quarry there, and it was on the west side of Interstate 15, going up north of the Bunkerville exit 112, about 3 miles. And that's where everybody went to a week ago last Saturday to, confront the federal agencies that, stood with hundreds of armed men. I counted 85 cars came out when they left the area. They didn't leave the area too far. I'm certain of that. I've seen them agencies up and down the interstate. You know, they're held back. You know, obviously they're not going away, and it's going to be very foolish if anybody gives an order to come in there, you know, to come in armed with federal agents and try to retake that. It's going to be a bloodbath, and only thing it will do is spark off, you know, people across the country to rise up. And I think, you know, that's probably something that some people are wanting. You know, I can't.
And, you know, that's what I fear, and I hope both sides realize, you know, we're all being played as pawns at some stage of this, and that
right.
we just have to go, you know, this is not about a person, this is not about cattle, this is about government just, you know, swallowing everything and giving it away to others. It's about federal government taking from one person to give to another. And that's all it is. And, you know, you don't have to support Bundy. You have to support the idea of freedom from tyranny. You have to support the idea that what you have belongs to you. You know, unless you have a contract with someone saying that you're renting it or that you're leasing it or that you're making payments on it. You know, unless you have that contract in hand, which in this case, there was no contract with the Bundys and the federal government. So, you know, that's the one thing in court. You go, well, am I contracted to pay this person for this? No. Well, you know, you have to prove something. And I think that's what failed in the, you know, federal courts is they didn't really have to prove anything. When the federal government is judging its own cases, that doesn't put equal justice into the system. Most people would go, well, this guy's been maintaining, or him and his family has been maintaining this property and all this expanse of land for this long, but we're going to take it because of, well, they're claiming a turtle. Well, didn't you just use the 1,400 of those things? And you want to spend $3 million to round up cattle because you couldn't pay $1 million for a conservation place and you euthanize 1,400 turtles. Well, that doesn't make sense, federal government. You know, none of this stuff is, you know, brought up in the court, but they get away with it. And that, I think our court systems are completely corrupt. And you can look at, you know, the whole bar association. You know, that's a private club. And they have full control over lawyers and prosecutors and all that.
Yeah, it's all the prosecutor, the defense, and the judge, you know, they're all working for the same person, you know, or the same entity.
Yep. Now, what do you expect to really see for the future of the Bundy Ranch if we don't see any federal action right off? Do you see a lot of these people leaving, or are the majority of them really going to stick it out?
The majority's already left, and but there is a contingency left behind that. You know, they have no plans for leaving. They're there for the long haul, and they're going to stay. Ammon Bundy is headed back to his home, and I think he lives in Phoenix, or at least in Arizona. And I'm pretty certain that he'll have some bodyguards that will escort him, and probably security already arranged at his house. And there's going to be people that are going to stay indefinitely to you know, protect these people. They've been getting escorted to town, to church, to work, and so forth. You know, they're having to have guards stand over some of these cowboys or some of the family members so they can go out and do their everyday duties in life that otherwise they may be kidnapped by a federal agency, you know, or killed.
And that's the type of fear that the federal government wants to push upon people. They want people to be feared that, well, if you step out of line. If you don't stand in that, single file line with everybody else and you step out, you can be killed. You can be disappeared. You can be arrested and put in prison for life. You never know what's going to happen. And I think it's, one thing that we've seen out of this was people's lack of fear to that anymore. It's gotten to a point where it seems that it's really boiled over to a point where they've already dealt with the fear. They're tired of the fear. That's what's allowing them to let go of it.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful description.
And, really out of the people remaining, what type of people are these, what's their mentality on, what they want to see happen, mainly peaceful type people that really just don't want the conflict but are ready for it, or are these people just constantly kind of waiting for it?
Well, I think there's an array. There was one kid, he came and quit his job and came out there, he and his girlfriend or wife, and he happened to have a felony, a nonviolent felony, and he was asked to leave. They don't want to have any association with anything that's any negativity. But like I say, I think that's a mistake, because just because a person has a felony doesn't necessarily mean that they ought not be carrying a gun. As far as, not wanting any people out there on drugs, well, look, I know for a fact there was dozens of people out there that are on all kinds of dope from the doctor, from the pharmaceuticals. So let's argue freedom about a plant, Well, it's okay if I was to take a Oxycontin or something, but, not manage my pain with rheumatoid arthritis with a joint. Well, I kept waiting for somebody to come up and say something to me, because I smoked them often and freely in my own encampment there, and basically I dared anybody to say anything to me about it. If we're going to stand for freedom, let's stand for freedom. Don't define my freedom by your ideology.
Now, have we heard about any more of these types of uprisings happening? I think I might have heard some reports.
Now there's a call out for another ranch here in Nevada, several places. So, this may spread where, militia from their local area will be able to, answer the call of duty to, their local area and support somebody else in a like fashion. It's like, what was his name there in Pennsylvania, the guy, that, they were going to put him in prison for selling milk, It's just, right's right. And just because somebody says something to you at a point of a gun or with a pen and paper, legislature, that don't make it right. So we need to stand for what's right all the way around. And let's not get divided on these issues, Stand together. If you don't want to smoke pot, don't smoke pot. If you're a dude and don't want a boyfriend, don't get a boyfriend, Don't, if you want to carry a gun, carry a gun. If you don't want to carry a gun, don't carry a gun, But I'll tell you what, it's the people with the guns that ultimately make the decision. So if we as American people are unarmed or disarmed, then, we're not going to have the ability to, contest any unjust action.
And here's one I've heard of, this one out of Breitbart, Texas AG Abbott to BLM, come and take it. And I'll read this real quick and get your take on this. It says, after Breitbart, Texas reported on the U.S. Bureau of Land Management intent to seize 90,000 acres belonging to Texas landholders along the Texas-Oklahoma line, Texas Attorney General Greg Abbott questioned the BLM's authority to take such action. It says here, quote, "I am about ready," General Abbott told Breitbart, Texas, "to go to the Red River and raise a come and take it flag to tell these feds to stay out of Texas." General Abbott sent a strongly worded letter to BLM Director Neil Corns asking for answers to a series of questions related to the potential land grab. I am deeply concerned about the notion that BLM believes the federal government has the authority to swoop in and take land that has been owned and cultivated by Texas landowners for generations. General Abbott wrote, the BLM's newly asserted claims to land along the Red River threaten to upset long-settled private property rights and undermine fundamental principles, including the rule of law, that form the foundation of our democracy. Yet the BLM has failed to disclose either its full intentions or the legal justification for its proposed actions. Decisions of this magnitude must not be made inside a bureaucratic black box. And I'm going to stop right there and just get your take on that.
That's Attorney General of Texas, the Attorney General of Texas,
right.
Greg Abbott. Yeah. Well, right, he is. We need to make a definition here. You know, what gives them the right to come in and do this? We're in debt to, China and others that, to keep this petrodollar propped up, we're having to pay off some dividends here. And, they've robbed the Social Security Trust Fund. Everything else has been, all the coffers are empty and all they have is the ability to, keep printing money. And people are saying, probably, look, okay, so we can hoodwink all these, American public in the world, the people of the world and, on this petrodollar, but you and I both know that it ain't worth the paper it's printed on. So, we're going to have some hard assets, and I think that's the direction that we're seeing here by land grabs by the federal government. There's been all kinds of speculations about the whys, on the Bundy Ranch, and from the solar thing with the Chinese, but I guess that fell through in 2013. But, just because the deal falls through doesn't mean that they can't bring it back up. So
that, and then they've done exploratory drilling in that area too.
The exact why is for me has very little importance. The fact is that it is occurring, and for whatever reason, it's not right. And
one thing that a lot of the news outlets are not pointing out at all is that this is a bureaucracy. This is not a agency that has law enforcement authority in the first place. And that if they are to go, well, we got a federal court order to seize these cattle or arrest this person, or, this person needs to be arrested. They're supposed to go to the local authorities that have the law enforcement, the county sheriff.
That's right. And Cliven Bundy has stated if they come up there with a warrant from the county sheriff, he'll go with them, And but, he's not recognizing the authority of the federal government with their claims, and I agree with him.
And another thing that comes from Sheriff Mack and his his lawsuit through the Supreme Court and everything, whether you like the guy or not, something came out of his case that basically came to the decision that, well, local and state governments are not required to go by federal court orders. They have no requirement by law to adhere to any of federal court orders. So if the BLM does get a federal court order and they come to the county sheriff can go, I'm not enforcing that.
Yeah. About 20 other ranchers have already been run off from there. I lived out there when I was a kid over Moapa Valley, and there is it used to be a dairy there, a big dairy operation in Hidden Valley. It's gone. I don't know what, they use a lot of new water for, raising the alfalfa, for, watering the cattle and all the associated operations that come along with that. And each gallon of water out here in the West is, pretty, it's a pretty high commodity. So, if you start eliminating, irrigated lands, cattle being watered and so forth. I mean, it does add up. So, I mean, there's a possibility that this is about water, or control of other natural resources.
I think it's control of all the natural resources. And that plays along in the Agenda 21. And, another thing when it goes back to, the BLM and not having law enforcement capabilities, they're basically regulatory bureaucracy and policy bureaucracy. Someone brought up in the chat room about the BLM just, a month ago or so, that they killed a guy on a bicycle, cold-blooded, because he was on unauthorized property, I believe. I'm not 100% positive. I can't remember right off bat. I did read the articles. But, the bureaucracy that not only are acting as law enforcement, but they've killed people for not being in the right area and not wanting to stop for a non-law enforcement agency. And that right there is why, people felt that militia was needed at the Bunny Ranch, because the BLM has proven that they're a little bit out of control. Right.
And that's a duty of each American to stand against injustice. No matter the negativity that some people associate with it, I think it's the right thing to do. And I just don't, I got to expect something bad is going to come out. There's going to be bloodshed. Somebody's not going to stand down. And I know the militia are not going to stand down when they're attacked. So, if the federal government is wanting to start a war, they can either do it from their side, or they can have somebody on the inside with the militia, which, everybody agrees that they have infiltrators. And, all it takes is one idiot or one provocateur to fire the first shot, and then it's on.
And I think that's really the biggest worry that I've seen, coming from people, is that, we don't know who the infiltrators are within the militia. That's how they're there. We don't know who these people are, and we don't know if there is a plan for an infiltrator to start something. Even if it's a so-called accidental, discharge or something. And that's why I heard reports about the whole standoff, in that, militia, and BLM both had their safeties off and fingers on the trigger, whether that's true or not. One thing that needs to be known from now on is that the simple, gun safety thing should not be, ignored, even in these crises, because those people that will completely ignore that, you might want to watch out for those people, because whether, it's an accident or it's, intentional, but in an accident, even accidental discharge, it could really just spark that keg and everything could fall apart. And
yeah.
We don't want the infiltrators, but we also don't want the accidents. So, gun safety, and, these people know it. And, the thing is you don't point the barrel at someone unless they're pointing a barrel at you. You don't put your finger on the trigger with the safety off unless you're ready to fire. You better, if you're going to do that, that's because you're going to fire that gun.
Absolutely.
And so, we need to understand these basic rules to understand, how to successfully, stand your ground and not be the provocateur.
For sure. Oh, I'll be back there Friday. I'm going to put another weekend out there anyways, and I don't know. I can't stay there forever, but I'm going to see where this goes and be following it. But hey, I'm going to jump out here. I'm going to go plug my phone back in, get a charge. Be going on with Roger Landry at the top of the hour, and I guess continue the same discussion. My only thing I have is, what I've seen there, the feeling that I get, I see the direction. So, mine's, what I have to say is conjecture and speculation. I have no no evidence of anything except for the fact that, you know, we're there and they showed up and they were stood down. So I think we need to see more of this peaceful revolution throughout America.
And that's the key concept, is a peaceful revolution. And, you know, I hope safe passage for you and safe passage back. Another thing, you know, just a shout out to everybody at the Bundy, because I know there's a lot of good people out there at the Bundy Ranch, people that are really there for the right reasons. And, you know, I don't think the Bundys as, you know, some bad people or, you know, I think they're sincere in their beliefs, and, you know, I just support, you know, peaceful revolution and evolution. And that means being able to open your mind up to go, I can't just stand for freedom when it's in my favor for things I believe in. I have to stand for everybody's freedom and what's right and what's wrong and what, you know, natural law and whatnot. You know, we really need to, take a stand together in our different beliefs.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it. I'll talk to you more later, bro.
Yep, take care.
All right, so bye.
Bye. So that was Vince from here at UCY. And he will be going back up to the Bundy Ranch this Friday, so, wish him the best. And, you know, whether you support the Bundys or not, I think we really just need to support what's right and wrong, natural law, our right to forage, our right to, you know, access the natural resources that are there. And if it's considered public land, then I think everybody has access to that public land. And just because someone uses it more than the other doesn't mean that they should have to pay a bureaucracy to do nothing but to regulate them. That in itself is wrong. That means that this person has artificial authority over you to tax you for something they do nothing with. And really, if you look at really the concept of government, the federal government, and I think I like how Stefan Molyneux put it, you know, the federal government owns nothing and controls everything. And that's governments around the world. They own nothing, but they control everything. Because they take claim to your property, they take claim to the public property, they take claim to any type of property that's within their boundaries. So they own nothing. They are not landowners. They are controllers, and they regulate and they control everything. But they are an entity. They can't own everything. It's a invalid concept. Okay. Give me a second here. And this one, oh, give me a second here. Having a couple issues. I don't think it's going to work. Nope, it's not going to work. Okay, well then I will go on to the next thing. I'm actually kind of getting low on time. I didn't think I was that far into the broadcast, but I guess that's okay. And hopefully this next one loads quick so I can get it in here. Maybe. Okay, it seems that I'm having problems on all ends right there, so I guess I'm just going to go to an article I have up. And this one's out of Ben Swan. This is a lot fee, so you're a terrorist, now what? Nashville, April 22nd. Long days spent at the Capitol fighting for state sovereignty are finally done. Legislative session is over. The snooze button was hit for 5 times this morning. The Ranger lays clean and loaded a few feet over. Or the Ruger. Ranger. The Ruger lays clean and loaded a few feet over. The smell of fresh coffee, biscuits, and ham fills the air. A country spring wind blows over the balcony. Hank Williams, 3 plays in the background. Is this how a domestic terrorist spends his morning? According to United States Senator Harry Reid, yes. For a sitting United States Senator to call American citizens domestic terrorists sets an incredible, dangerous precedent. Not only did Reid call Americans domestic terrorists, he labeled his own constituents as such. When asking to clarify, Reid defended his claims. I meant just what I said. Never mind that Reid has been pushing U.S. tax dollars to fund Al-Qaeda in Syria. Never mind that Bill Ayers bombed several buildings, which include the U.S. Capitol and Pentagon, and now sits with Reid and President Obama writing your children's school books. Yes, Reid actively dines with true terrorists. Of course, no one dare call him the terrorist he is. No, that would be treason. Now what? Whether you agree with the Bundy Ranch protest is of little relevance. Your government believes you are a terrorist. This came unapologetically straight from their mouths. This is why this is important. Your government has been given itself the power to monitor your every move. The National Security Agency has been operating under the guise of protecting Americans from potential terrorist attack. Yet the NSA isn't monitoring the potential attacks. Instead, the NSA is monitoring everyone and everything. The NSA is spying on our foreign allies, your Facebook accounts, and your pornography viewing habits. In fact, according to a Reuters report, the shared data almost never has anything to do with terrorist threats. So then we are told the purpose of the NSA is to detect terrorism threats, but the NSA is only monitoring you and I, and you are the terrorist. Our government seems to believe we are. Your government has given itself the power to indefinitely detain you, an American citizen, at any time for the rest of your life. Trial? No shot. Your government has been given itself the power to execute you, an American citizen, at any moment for suspected terrorism. Innocent until proven guilty is no more. Guilty until proven innocent is the new. Were these militiamen armed? Absolutely. We have an innate right to keep and bear arms, not a constitutional right, but an innate right. No such thing as constitutional rights exist. All rights are innate. The Constitution simply bans the federal government from attempting to assert those God-given rights. Militiamen never once provoked the BLM. On the other hand, the BLM pointed the big guns. The antagonists, indeed. And here we are now. And if you try to peacefully protest that you believe to be unjust while exercising your innate right to self-defense, your government calls you a terrorist. The legislative definition are ambiguous. Terrorist, battlefield, extremist, suspect. No clear definition exists. This is by design. When Reid throws around the word terrorist, he does so with an innately insidious purpose. The word opens a Pandora's box of federal action. Reid knows this. Some would accuse us of having tinfoil hats. However, the links do not lie. When your rights are left to the interpreters of vague legislative language, to no salvation can be found. Liberty and freedom are words of absolute, and ambiguity must find no refuge here. So you're a terrorist, now what? Can you connect the dots? And I really think that's a powerful message. When is government completely crossed the line? Have they not already done that? Have they not already waged war on the American public? Look at our prison systems. This is not something new. But eventually, there has to be a breaking point. And history has shown that. And I think this one out of the newamerican.com is something that kind of, puts that out there again. That there's breaking points, and I think people are reaching those. And I think the Bunny Ranch was just the start. Says here, April 15 was the deadline for residents of New York to register assault weapons that they owned before the passage of the state's SAFE Act, gun control law. But on the day of the deadline, pro-Second Amendment advocates in an act of protest gathered in downtown Buffalo to shred gun registration forms. They have been shredding the Constitution for years. Russ Thompson, the leader of the April 15th rally, was quoted by the Buffalo News as saying, "You shred the Constitution, we'll shred any form you want us to fill out. They can't arrest a million people. What are they going to do? Nobody is going to comply with this," added Tim. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Identified by the news as a gun owner and a 30-year range safety officer from Springville. "We don't call them assault rifles because they're not assault rifles. Assault rifles are automatic weapons," which I even claim that's not even true. Assault weapons, something you use to assault someone, not something you use to defend yourself. These are not automatic weapons. When I hear politicians call them assault rifles, they don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to stop right here because this is important. Well, when you allow them to call fully automatic weapons assault rifles, you've opened that Pandora's box. Because again, assault rifles are not something that assault doesn't go, "Oh, that's fully automatic." That's what assault means, is fully automatic. No, assault doesn't mean fully automatic. Go look up assault in the dictionary and show me where it says fully automatic. Now, I'm sure they put assault weapon in there as fully automatic or something stupid. But assault means that you're assaulting someone with it, not defending. And I think that's a difference that you have to go, let's close this Pandora box. Unless you're assaulting, that means you're being the offensive person. You're not defending yourself or your property or a neighbor or, a fellow citizen. It's when you're the one committing the acts of violence. That's when it becomes an assault weapon. It says here, as of April 5th, only 3,000 to 5,000 New Yorkers had registered their guns, and defenders of the Second Amendment estimate that compliance will be less than 10%. In Erie County, where Buffalo is located, Sheriff Timothy Howard said that he will not force his deputies to enforce registration under the new law. Theoretically, any law enforcement officer who encounters anyone with this type of gun at a minimum is supposed to record the serial number and the individual's identity and report it to Albany, Howard said, according to the news. Asked if he would force his deputies to comply, Howard replied, "I don't know. I'm not encouraging them to do it. At the same time, their own conscience should be their guide. I am not forcing my conscience on them. that is a decision they should make. A reporter for WIVB News in Buffalo noted the SAFE Act redefines an assault weapon as almost any semi-automatic weapon with a military-style feature, including a telescoping stock, long guns with a pistol grip, or the ability to hold a detachable magazine. The law also broadens definition of assault weapon from two identified features to one, including the above, as well as a thumb hole mount, bayonet mount, flash suppressor, or grenade launcher. Since most of the distinguishing identifiers are largely cosmetic, we recall the old Volkswagen Cayman Gaia, which was basically a sports car body attached to a Volkswagen Beetle chassis. Though it looked like a sports car, it was still underneath a Volkswagen with a top speed of 75 miles per hour. Similarly, despite SAFE Act's language, putting fancy grips on a ordinary rifle does not make it an assault weapon. And again, they'll probably go into, well, it's not fully automatic. It's not an assault weapon. Well, neither is a fully automatic weapon. These laws are just everything to do with limiting your ability to defend yourself. Why? Well, go back into the broadcast. It's because they've waged war on the American people. And I'm not telling people to go out there and be violent people. I'm telling people they need to be peaceful. But we also, as peaceful people, need to realize that, well, if you look at it, these people only have the authority we allow them to have. We are the people. They are very few. If we can look at it and go, hey, maybe if we just allow each other to live our own lives and, as long as we're not hurting each other, the simple, reality that we voluntarily interact with each other. We're not forced to interact with each other. You're not forced to interact with people you might not like. That should be a forced interaction. That what we do should be of our own making and not some government or bureaucratic making somewhere that half the time we don't even know where these people are. They could be in China for all we know and doing green screen. Most people don't know. We know what we see on a screen, but we don't know the truth about a lot of this. And we never will if we allow them just to continually grow their power. There has to be a breaking point that people say no more. And history has shown there's been a breaking point. In every empire, there is a breaking point. There's too much for that empire to handle. But the problem that I fear is that humankind still hasn't evolved enough mentally to understand that, well, when we take down one empire and create a government that just has the capability to grow out of control again and somehow give them some type of authority over our lives, we will end up at the same place we are every time, where the empire is growing and it starts waging war on its own people and it gets out of control and eventually it collapses. After bloodshed and people dying for no obvious reason other than we allowed people to gain power and control over others' lives and to wage misery. Where's that pursuit of happiness? we have to let go of that concept that anybody has authority over another person. You don't have authority over someone, but they don't have authority over you. Any breach of that concept means that someone is going, well, I have power over you to either steal your stuff or hurt you or hurt others. That's a breach of that understanding that another person doesn't have moral authority to do that over someone else. But history, in one way I have optimism for the human race. In other views I go, well, maybe it won't happen. But I still guess hold out hope that it does. But understanding history says that more than likely it's not going to happen, at least anytime soon. Definitely when you see history repeating itself. It's hard to be optimistic. But I think there's something that we have that we haven't had in history. And that's the ability to communicate with each other across the world and the instant flow of information and the ability to spread the message. And that's why if you understand freedom, you have the concept of freedom. It's so important that you voice that and voice how you feel your ideology, because others are, and some of them don't have a great intention in what they're trying to spread. There's people out there trying to spread information to, again, divide and conquer. And we have to beat that. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the broadcast tonight. There will be a rebroad this Friday, and I will catch you next Wednesday. Take care.